It is 5:30 on October 20th.
6 o'clock.
I'm sorry. There was a misprint on the agenda. I apologize. All right. So it is 6:01 on Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. We are holding a Curriculum and Evaluation Committee meeting, and we are meeting in Nashua School District, holding an emergency meeting pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, Section 8, and Emergency Order number 12 in Section 3. So this is a committee. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call. First, we have Ms. Timmons.
Here.
All right. Mrs. Johnson?
Present.
Excellent. Thank you. And also in attendance, we have Heather Raymond.
Here.
And Dr. Garth McKinney.
Here.
All right. We have Tara Kinsella here as our administrator, and ETV is streaming live. So, our first order of business, we also have a quorum. Thank you. So our first order of business is our teacher observations during remote learning instruction. So go ahead, Dr. McKinney, take it away.
Thank you. Included in your packet is guidance and a rubric for teacher observations during remote and hybrid instruction this year. We have two committees who typically work together on documents such as this. The first is a subcommittee, which is we call TDEC, our Teacher Development and Evaluation Committee. And then kind of the parent committee, which is the Professional Development Master Plan Committee. These two committees have representatives appointed by the Nashua Teachers Union and the superintendent. And these two groups work together to put together the guidance and the rubric for use during this year for the 2020-21 school year. So it's sort of a simplified teacher rubric for teacher evaluations for the year.
Excellent. All right. So do any of the committee members, has this been the rubric that we've gone through with the it's TDAC committee, is that correct? All right. Have they kind of signed off on this at this point?
They have. We brought similar rubrics to this group, I want to say in the spring of last year. And this is a kind of scaled down or simplified version of that rubric to use during this year.
Are there any members of the committee who have any questions?
I just have one question, Dr. McKinney. It said recommend that the Curriculum and Evaluation Committee approve the attached guidance of the rubric for using the remote and hybrid instruction. So this remote and hybrid instruction, is this the first time we ever using something similar to that?
Actually, yes. So there's first the simplified guide that is available for teachers and administrators, and then the simplified rubric, which includes parts of the original general teacher rubric that we do every year that's been approved by this committee and the board before, but we took out parts that both sides felt were not applicable or could be challenging to evaluate teachers during remote and hybrid.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons. Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. On this document here, on the first page, it says observation, keeping it simple, safety, can students focus? Are we talking about students focusing during the remote learning? Is that what we're talking about right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so how are we knowing how many students are able to focus during remote?
Most of the observations can be done via Zoom. So if you can see the class and see the kids are focused and attentive, that's a snapshot of the observation. The other part is obviously talking to the teacher and asking questions during the post-observation conference.
Okay. What about the kids that can't do this? I mean, not every kid is focusing. I'd like to know what is the percentage, if you can get us that information, what is the percentage of the kids that are actually being able to focus in the Zoom learning, and what is the percentage of the kids that aren't? Because I think that's very important to us now, as we're starting to look more into the hybrid and what else we might be looking into coming January, because I'm concerned that a lot of these students are falling by the wayside because Zoom just can't work for them.
I believe I understand, but I'm confused. This document is to evaluate the teachers and their ability to instruct kids. So
But that would come to it, because if they're unable to instruct the kids that can't keep up with the Zoom, that will be part of it. Because, some kids can take the instruction from the Zoom and some can't. So, okay, so I'd like to know how many kids in the class are being able to follow the teachers Zooming. Maybe I'm not making it clear.
Is there, do you think there should be a correlation on these reviews between attendance and student engagement and performance beyond the observation from the evaluator? Ms. Johnson, is that kind of what you're implying?
I guess so, basically, because the question is, can students focus? Well, if the material isn't being presented to them the way they're able to learn, and it's through Zoom, then the question is, can these students be able to focus? Are they able to keep up with the curriculum, with the teachers during the Zoom? So, I'm taking it, safety is the class running smoothly. Can students focus? Are they emotionally healthy? So with the observation, so you can center that around the teachers. Are the teachers being able to keep them focused? Are they being able to run the class smoothly? Yes or no? And how many kids within the class with the teachers maybe zooming out? So there has to be a percentage here with the teachers on the learning piece. It all ties it, it all ties in together. I know it does in my brain.
That does make sense, that teacher performance and student performance are relative to one another.
Because it says here in engagement, are the student attentive and involved? So that comes up to the focus of the students. And
can I just sorry. That's okay.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Raymond.
So I hear what you're saying about student engagement and student performance, but I feel like this form is meant to give constructive feedback to the teacher. So yes, the observer would want to know how many kids are like off in outer space versus how many kids are like focused. But this observation would be to give that feedback back to the teacher, right? To say, hey, can you think of any other strategies to get those those kids who are struggling to attend? I noticed that there were, half the class wasn't paying attention so can we talk about that? Like, I kind of thought that these observations were to start a conversation with the teacher about their practice, or am I out in left field here on what this is supposed to do? Because now I'm totally confused.
Well,
No.
Can I just jump in? Well, I'll let you go, Dr. McKinney, because I have a few more questions on it.
I do have a question too. On the based on what Ms. Johnson just said, but there's a process checklist, and this is the observation. And the process checklist tell you about the observation checklist and keeping it simple on what they expect. I think this just as to observe what's going on, nothing else. It's so you can get that feedback, Ms. Johnson.
I get that, but I just want to make sure. It's just not so much a checklist. We need to make sure that these kids are focused, they're attentive, and learning. How is the teacher checking? That's the bottom one. The last sentence here on learning. How is the teacher checking for understanding? But you have to get through all the other points before you get through the teacher checking for learning. If these kids aren't attentive, and because they can't do the Zoom, checking for understanding with the learning is gone.
this is the purpose of this particular,
But I understand that, but I wanted to get us consensus about how is this followed up and how we're going through to make sure that these students are definitely focusing and they're attentive. Because the bottom line at the understanding is okay, but you have to get through the other points. And I'm just kind of curious how many kids are really being at that point with the teachers. It all ties in together.
I think I'm going to hand the floor over to Dr. McKinney, so maybe he can clarify this a little bit for us.
Mrs. Johnson, if you were the teacher and I was the evaluator, I would observe you 4 to 6 times over the course of the year. And I would use this document as a guide for our conversations. At the end of the year, you're provided a score against this rubric. So I might see one mini lesson for 10 to 15 minutes and talk about clarity. Are you presenting information clearly and directly with explanations, appropriate language, and examples for kids to follow? Another time I might provide feedback on relationships and respect. Are you managing the classroom environment? Are you calling on the same kids all the time? Equally boys and girls, kids of different ethnicities and backgrounds, all of that. The third time I might comment on how you're assessing kids. And over the course of time, these conversations lead to me being able to evaluate your teaching over the course of the year. We'll have follow-up conversations via Zoom or a phone call. I'll look at student work. I can look at the assessment results. I check in on kids that have 504s and IEPs. And over the course of time, I complete the evaluation, you sign off on it, and have a conversation around here are the areas I think I'm doing well on, and here's in the areas I think I need to grow. Based on that score, you may be eligible to return to the district the following year. If not, based on that score, you may go on an improvement plan. If the score was really not terrific, you might be a teacher that we're not welcoming back into the district. So all of these things are little snapshots in time and giving feedback to the teacher and providing growth, because not everybody learned how to do remote and hybrid instruction in undergrad or graduate school. We're giving it our best effort. They had some PD. Both sides, management and labor, agree this is a reasonable starting point, and we're here to help. We have coaches, we have everything else. I am certainly very well aware, Mrs. Johnson, that you are invested in the kids' learning and filling in gaps of learning due to COVID, and I'm pretty confident that we all are too. So we're doing our very best.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McKinney, for breaking that down more specifically for us, because you actually were able to answer my 2 main questions, which were what's the frequency of observation, that it's going to be 4 times, and then what was the timeline for a finished observation. And I like that you're giving clear goals and room for improvement as the year progresses. I'll get right back to you in one moment, Mrs. Johnson. My other question was, is there some measure of making sure that the administrators in the district, the principals, are accountable? Do they have to turn these in by a certain time, a certain date? Is it May 1st or June 1st or whatever, that kind of a timeline?
Yep, it's in the professional development master plan. There are benchmarks for that. I run a report every month for all the administrators I supervise, see where they are with their mini observations. It tells me how many they've done, how many teachers they supervise, how many need to get completed. Certainly, I think it's our due diligence to give teachers the coaching, the support, and the feedback they need to be at their best in front of kids.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that we've got those benchmarks written in the plan. Mrs. Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. So when we're doing the observation on the teachers, how are we working this out with Zoom? How are they zooming into the classrooms and watching? Because you said we do it 4 to 6 times a year. So that would have been classroom face to face. So how are we doing it with the Zooms now?
The teacher would share the Zoom with the administrator, and the administrator would sign in and observe, take notes, arrange a time for a post-conference afterwards, a conference with the teacher, and then write it up. Our platform is called To Adjourn. The administrator would put the observation report in To Adjourn. It automatically sends a note to the teacher. The teacher goes in, reviews it, says, thank you for the feedback. I'll work on X, Y, and Z. And it's logged into the system. And then the same process will repeat itself 4 to 6 times over the course of the year.
And how much, excuse me, how much notice is the teacher given prior to the observation?
These observations can be both announced and unannounced. So sometimes the teacher knows the administrator's coming, others probably more likely, given the logistics that have to be worked out remote, there may be some coordination, but at the same time, the administrator reserves the right to just pop in, do a walkthrough, and see how things are going.
And I guess I'm going to get back to almost the same question again, talking points, question menu to lead to a deeper dialogue. You know, what do we believe work well for our kids? And I guess I'm going to get back to the same thing. How are we engaging our students when there's a problem with Zoom? I don't think, what can I do to support during the challenge of remote learning? So that's basically my question here. So when, and I think it's a good question here. So what are they doing? I mean, when the administrator sees that the teacher isn't engaging the student or for whatever reason there's a problem, how are we working through this between the teachers and the Zoom right now? And I know I'm really looking at this hard because the kids that are in Zoom and kids that aren't in school about this, because I feel that the money we're spending and we're getting another $200 per student for the governor. I want to make sure that all the money that we're getting from the CARES Act is being applied, being properly distributed to make sure that these students aren't losing very much in this year of school. So that's why I'm asking some of these questions in the engagement of students in the classroom and with the teachers.
So our engagement and attendance is vastly improved since the spring. I think we've done just about everything we possibly can to get kids engaged. There are a handful of kids at each school where parents are not engaging their kids. Some are chosen to homeschool their kids. Some have chosen other placements. And there are a number of, unfortunately, kindergarten families that aren't engaging their kids. But from our end, and there's been some really good work done by technology to uncover challenges for kids to get logged on. I understand remote learning is not for everyone. It's not the same as in person, but we're doing our best to get kids logged on, engaged, get them the work they need. Schools like Lead Street have a drive-up, walk-up window where people can get ELL support and tech support. And we pretty much have figured out how to do the majority of the things that we do in person, but in another way. And that's a tribute to the staff. So, if there are technical issues when the Zoom's not working or people aren't logging in, we have a help desk. We have teachers at the school and building level, and administrators have been working to, not literally chase down, but connect with families and get them engaged so that they are a part of their classroom instruction.
Well, that's encouraging. Parents who decide to homeschool and remove the kids, so we're not worried about them not engaging because they've taken care of what they need for the needs of their kids. So that's a different type of engagement. But thank you very much.
Can I point out something too? Because I'm very engaged in remote learning myself. Today, one of the schools, I don't want to call the name of the school, their system was down. So the kid couldn't go on Zoom today at all. But when the teacher was written, she said the Zoom lesson was still there. It got fixed later on that day after the Zoom class, and they could still continue on that. So it doesn't go away. They could still go in and do that lesson for that particular day. But the first grader could not go on Zoom this morning. But later on, after 2 or so, they were able to go without the teacher, of course, and do that lesson. And that was on one school. It wasn't on all the schools. It was just one.
Thank you for letting us know that.
I can't hear
I'm
you.
sorry. Mrs. Raymond, did you have your hand up? Was I mistaken?
No, I got really lost in the weeds and confused on what the form was. But Dr. McKinney clarified it for me. It was what I thought it was originally. The discussion took me afloat and I went, wait a second, now I'm questioning. It doesn't matter. I'm fine.
All right. Well, so Dr. McKinney, would you suggest that we read through the professional development master plan before we look for approval on this evening, or should we go ahead and talk about the motion to approve the rubric first? Are they relative to one another? Is it one motion or two?
It would be two, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to recommend that to the full board to approve the guidance rubric for the duration of the remote and hybrid instruction during the 2020-2021 academic school year.
Second it.
All right. Thank you very much. Motion is seconded by Ms. Timmons. So we will do a roll call. If there's, is there any discussion for the motion on the floor? All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Timmons
Yes.
and Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Yes. And I vote yes to approve the rubric as well. And motion passes unanimously. All right. The next item is the professional development master plan from 2016 to 2021. This is a review and revised copy, which, 2021 isn't that far away. So glad that we're updating it now. I'm guessing we may have some more updates as time progresses. So it says during the 2019-20 school year, members of the Teacher Development and Evaluation Committee, Professional Development Master Plan Committee work to update and revise this document. The Joint Management Labor Committees included representation appointed by both the Teachers Union and the Superintendent, representing a variety of stakeholders. This is the work for the full document. It's a nice hefty one. And Dr. McKinney is recommending that we go ahead and approve it. So do we have any questions from the committee members? All right, seeing none at this time, let's go with Ms. Raymond. Thank you for coming and joining us.
Oh, sorry. I was like, yeah, I do. No. I have a question. They can go first.
All right, actually, I think you're frozen. Oh, there you are. You're back. Sorry, you were frozen for just one moment, Ms. Raymond, but you're back now. Oh, all right.
Happened. She went away.
Yeah, I think, hey, Heather, if you're still on the line, maybe consider turning off your video and turning it back on for a minute.
Is it better now? Forget it.
It's all right. Well, actually, we can hear you speaking. We just can't see your face moving. So if you'd either like to use the chat feature for your question or go ahead and ask it, we can hear you. Oh, all right. All right, Heather, if you can still hear me, go ahead and stick your question in the chat and then I'll be happy to ask it. Ms. Timmons or Ms. Johnson, do you have a question on the development master plan?
No.
Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Okay. On the mission statement, one got crossed out. Are they the same mission statements and the same introduction, but one is crossed out as I'm reading it? Is it just that they were rewritten?
Actually, I was going to ask that same question too. The information in red, just to clarify, is if it's got a line through it, it's been removed from the document. If it is just in red, it was recently added, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay. Yeah,
and
but I
then-
guess my question is the mission statement on top and the mission statement that's got lines through, I'm reading it, am I missing something that's different in it? And the same thing with the introduction? with lines through it and then rewritten? Am I missing something? I thought it said almost the same thing.
I think I'm wondering if this is just more of a formatting
Here,
issue than changing the words. Oh, Ms. Kinsella, please clarify for us.
So I didn't actually work on that. I believe it was Dr. McKinney's admin, but redlining is one of those really funky features that is so useful, but can make a document very confusing. If she simply moved it to a different spot, it does that.
Okay.
So I've learned ways to trick it. And I certainly will teach Carmen ways to trick it. But it's, yeah, it can be very confusing if you do tiny little formatting features. It makes it look like you've done a lot of changes that really don't even
it's
exist.
the same wording.
I
Exactly.
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. No, sorry for that. We'll work on trying to simplify that. It's a powerful tool, but it can be confusing.
Yeah.
Okay. And the mission statement. I guess when I read this, Nashua School District, in partnership with the community, is committed to providing a quality education to all students in a safe, nurturing, and motivating environment, and is dedicated to helping students become lifelong learners and responsible, productive members of a rapidly changing society. So, I guess I look at this, and I know, here we go again. I look at the wording and I look at what's happened with COVID, and some students are not in a safe and nurturing environment. So, I guess some of this mission statement doesn't really apply right now because of the situation out there. That's just one person's opinion here, because I'm just reading what it says, and some of this really doesn't apply right now. So, I guess I'm being nitpicky and picking things apart, but just from what I feel and from what things are out there, I want to make sure that mission statement is right now during COVID. Thank you.
And that's an excellent observation. Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Go ahead, Dr. McKinney.
Just to give an overview of some of the changes. One of the challenges was that this document was back in an old version of Word going back to 2015-16. So we had to do some reformatting, bringing it back to current technology and get it formatted. Other updates include having one consistent place for all the forms and processes for teachers to engage in professional development. What had happened over time was previous forms were saved on teachers' desktops, saved on school websites, and then when the committees would update anything, people wouldn't use the updated form. And then they'd submit the old form. The administrator would say, no, we have a new form. You have to go back and do it all over again, which doesn't make anybody happy. And then we'd have to do the process all over again. So now we're trying to have one central place for all the guiding documents for how paras, teachers, and administrators engage in professional development over the course of 3 years in their PD cycle. And then also all the teacher rubrics that we just went over previously are all posted online, and there's one version for everybody to go. So if these two committees make changes to any of them, they know where to go, they know where to get to the rubrics, and we know how to put them in our T-eval system to evaluate them. So I apologize for the formatting. This was a large undertaking to bring 50 to 60 pages from 5 to 6 years ago back to life. The one other thing that was included in your packet last week is how do we evaluate professional development? So we simplified the form, and that's also included online in our frontline system. So if teachers take a workshop, they can give feedback, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. The presenter gets to see the feedback from the teachers in there, and then the district can run PD reports by school. Principals can run them on their faculty meetings, any of their early release days. So we tried to make it more systematic, because before, believe it or not, everything was either paper-based or a lot of Google Forms that took the committee most of the year to kind of go through. Here we can click a button, give results, give it to the people who want to make decisions, and say, that presenter was really great, bring them back. That presenter wasn't so good. No, thank you, let's try somebody else. So I hope that's helpful.
That is certainly helpful. So I have a few questions kind of following that up. Is what kind of software are you using to track this data, the forms where the teachers are taking their PD at?
The parent company is called Frontline, and Frontline teachers can do three things. They can apply for a job in the district. They can call for a sub if they're out sick or using personal time. And then the third way is to engage in PD and keep track of their hours and attendance and sign up for workshops. One of the recommendations from the committee was on the in-service days, how do you get 1,000 teachers to sign up for workshops? We didn't have a software or platform to do that. So this allows us to do that and say, all right, Ms. Kinsella is giving a workshop on X, Y, and Z. Only 30 teachers can sign up. 30 teachers sign up, and then after that, it generates a wait list. If slots open up, it automatically brings those people in. Before, we were doing that through Google Forms, phone calls, emails, and those 2 in-service days were quite tiring. So we like the new software.
I'm so glad to hear it. I'm a big fan of efficient databases. So I like hearing that it's all in one place. And I'm guessing it must be something that's easy to pull like spreadsheets and things from as well. If we wanted to say teachers tend to be taking more PD on reading courses as opposed to math courses, or by this particular professional development delivery service or this instructor, is that something we can look at and like pull that kind of information out of that database?
Yes. So let me just find one thing. But one of the safeguards that's in there as well is for, let's just say the responsibility is on the educator or the administrator to keep track of their PD and their hours and the things they engage in so they can get recertified. We have had instances where people lose that information or move between districts or misplaced it. This is a safeguard for teachers to say, I'm missing 3 or 4 or 6, 12 PDP credits. Can you run a report and tell me how many I have so I can apply for recertification? So in that regard, it's a big help because we've had some fire drills where people call at the last minute. They're short. They don't want to pay to take a class. They don't want to go to a workshop, and come to find out, they sat in a few meetings and they have the credits that they need. To your question, Ms. Brown, I'm looking in the PDMP. There is a section in here that asks the committee to present to the board X number of times a year. So if that's something the committee is interested in, we certainly can arrange that.
I would find that information very interesting moving forward. If there's like a specific area where teachers are really finding a good source of knowledge or shared knowledge out of that. And you actually answered my next question as well. I love that teachers can track that kind of thing and that we can make sure everybody's certifications are current. So that's fantastic. Let's see, my other last question, I only think I wrote half of my note here. Did we edit anything about the requirements that teachers need annually per their contract? Is that in this document, or would that be something extra? I just wanted to make sure this isn't going to interfere with anything we've got going on with the union contracts or state certifications, anything like that. Anything has been modified in this master plan document?
So 2 things. One, when and if this is approved by the full board, it goes on file at the state. So it is in compliance with the state guidelines for applying for recertification. And 2, with the 2 joint committees, PDMP and TDEC, we are in alignment with the teacher's contract and the para's contract so that we're not asking anybody to do that's not in alignment to the collective bargaining agreement. So this should be in alignment with the work that we're already doing.
Excellent. Good to hear. And actually, I have one follow-up question that's from Ms. Raymond. So she was asking about the dates on the document. in regards to upcoming contract negotiations. So for right now, you're recommending that we leave the document end date until 2021, so that then we could reevaluate it at the end of the school year, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so before this document was in place, the other way to get recertified was based on X number of hours. So say you participate in 75 hours of professional development, you list all your hours, you send them to the state, you get recertified. We do more of a binder reflection system. So I'd like to work with the committees this year, talk to them about it. If we keep the format the same, we can keep it the same. Should we make any changes? We could certainly include that in the CBA. But typically the way it's written now with this joint management arrangement between the teachers union and the superintendent's office, there's agreement between both sides, and that's enough to move forward. So.
Okay, so you don't see at this time any reason to extend the date out further. It's fine as it is past 2021, and then we'll
leave it through
cross the bridge when we get there.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. McKinney. Are there any more questions from the committee? Go ahead, Ms. Timmons. You're on mute, Ms. Timmons.
This question is for Dr. McKinney. The professional development survey for educators and school leaders, is that the same as the evaluation? Simplified, right?
So it would be an evaluation. If I went to a 2-hour workshop on social emotional learning, I would fill that out afterwards and give feedback to the instructor on how I thought the presentation went.
Oh, okay. This is not evaluation.
Not on the teacher, but on the PD itself.
On PDD. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. Do you have any more questions, Ms. Johnson? All right. Then I would like to move that we recommend to approve the professional development master plan for 2016 through 2021 to the full Board of Education.
So move.
All right, excellent. Ms. Timmons, thank you. All right, we will, so I'll go ahead and take a roll call. Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
and I also vote yes to approve the plan. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, so our next section here is informational, mostly, and we'll be talking about this more in the coming months. And it is the upcoming discussion from the state about the social studies state standard status.
Yes. So there's a memo before it, but before that, after that, sorry, is
This memo.
document that gives an overview of where these state standards are. We were hoping before COVID happened to get more information around the reorganization of these standards and the format. This was the last document that was made available to school districts. But since then, we haven't had more information. But that is to provide an update to the committee on where things are. And hopefully we hear more information. And when I do, I'll bring it back to this committee.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate this. The next things, there are some really good updates of our social studies curriculum that we can also integrate with some of our reading curriculums, especially at that middle school level. I think there's some real potential there. So I'm looking forward to finding out the standards so that we can develop what we need here in Nashua, keep our kids well balanced. Does anyone from the committee have any questions regarding to the status of the social studies standard? Okay, excellent. Well, that's the end. Would any board members like to make any comments or request for future? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. McKinney.
And just before that, there is a memo on two things that have come from the legislature. The NHSAA provides updates on that. So there's just two pieces there. A proclamation by the governor around D-Day remembrance, and then a larger one around a commission that's being formed on Holocaust and genocide education. Further updates will be coming. But again, these are all things that are probably going to impact our social studies curriculum, scope and sequence, alignment. So there's work to be done there, but we're hoping for additional information on those three things before we move forward.
All right, excellent. And I actually know that one of our middle schools has been having the Holocaust genocide discussion for several years as part of their curriculum. And they've got an excellent display that we're actually still going to be it's going to be more prominent when we are doing the work in the new middle schools. Right now, it's kind of the display they've got and the work that the students have done, and the teacher has been working on it multiple years to get an amazing display with a paperclip to represent, I think, every child who was killed during the Holocaust, and they're moving that to a more prominent location, so that, I think it'll have a really important impact. I think it's really great, and I commend the teacher who's spent so many years putting that display together. Yes, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. So if one school is doing that, is all the other schools have that in the curriculum right now? So is it just in one school?
So that one, that particular project was a special project
Okay.
the teacher did. But I think that's what Dr. McKinney is talking about. These two directives from the state are to include all of these things in our upcoming social studies, make sure they're part of our curriculum. And there's also going to be a few other things that are going to be added to our curriculum moving forward, as well as we develop that next portion.
I think this is great. I mean, the students should know that we have a Holocaust memorial downtown Nashua. I know Mr. T-Boom personally, former Alderman T-Boom, who erected that with the help of the city because he's a Holocaust survivor. And I'm glad that we're doing this with the intolerance, the bigotry, the anti-Semitism, and national, ethnic, racial, and religious hatred, because it encompasses everything out there. It really does. And what's going on in this country right now, people have political signs on their lawn. They're painting swastikas on it, and the person isn't even Jewish. So it's the form of hatred that's going out there, and there's no room for this hatred out there. We were all people, regardless of our color of our skin, our religion, and everything. We treat people as human beings, and that's what we forgot out there. So I think this is a very important thing, and I'm happy about the New Hampshire D-Day for our veterans for World War II. But you know what? I think it's for all veterans who served our country, and I respect them all, because this country wouldn't have our freedom unless we had our veterans. And so I think these are two important pieces in the education of our students, to remember who veterans are, and to remember that it doesn't matter what color of your skin or what religion you are, you're a person first, and we shouldn't have such hatred in this country, because hatred just divides us even more, and there's been too much division, and I'm glad we're putting this in. I hope we put a few more things into the curriculum. I hope we put the social studies in there. I'd like to know, are we teaching 1776 or 1619? I'd like to know on the social studies, which I've asked before. I'd like to know. And I just think that we as a nation need to go back to our birth and see how it's everybody. There's been hatred among everybody at some point in time, and it's wrong. It's wrong. So, hopefully this city can move forward and teach our kids more love than hatred in here, and that we all have to work together as a team, especially in the school, especially right now with what's going on. So I'm happy to see this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, that is the end of our agenda this evening. And so I will be happy to accept a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Timmons. All right. Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Miss Johnson,
Yes.
and Jessica Brown votes yes. We are unanimously adjourned at 6:45 p.m.
Thank you all.